This is the great Roberto coming at you live action. Okay, now let's get into part 2 of the sexual mastery, ejaculation control video series here, because I left a lot out in the first one because it's a really in-depth topic, but there's a lot to it. But let's get into it today with ejaculation frequency. How often should you come? And right now that's going to be a variable number, but right now my target is once every 7 days. That's the target I shoot for. So meaning the day of ejaculation is 0, and then each day after that we go, each full day after that counts as 1 day. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 0 again when you ejaculate, or 7 and 0 again when you ejaculate. Okay, and I even mark it on my calendar when I ejaculate, and then I actually have a log that I keep track of, and I've been keeping track of it for over 2 years. I started keeping track of it in 2012, so I have a complete record of 2012, 2013, and now I'm doing 2014, because it's important to know what you're doing and where you've been. And as a matter of, now, one thing I want to add, the idea is about mastering ejaculation control and managing your frequency. So, like on the calendar, when I keep track of it, I'll put a slash for the actual ejaculation day, and then in the days ahead, I'll put a little dot for each day that I actually get into the sexual state and not ejaculate at all, meaning I'll ride the entire sexual state and not ejaculate at all, and then I'll finish, and that'll be it, right? I put a little dot for that, and then when I record it after the next ejaculation, I'll record it in my notes. It'll be a series of numbers. It'll be, let's say I hit the target of 7 days. It'll be 7, then slash whatever the dot number was. So say I had 5 sexual experiences without ejaculating, the number would be 7/5. So that tells me that I hit my target of 7, but I also had 5 episodes where I entered the sexual state without ejaculating, and that would be represented by the second number. And then I'll put a letter after that. It'll either be a P or an A, and the P stands for purposely ejaculated, or A for accidentally ejaculated. Now, one thing I want to add to you, while you're on the road to discovery of this, you are going to fuck up a lot. You are going to have accidental ejaculations all the time. If you're not, that means you're not pushing the envelope of what you're capable of. So meaning, if your version of ejaculation control is the super slow, careful method, like the stop and start method, the introductory, very, very, very basic level, and if you don't have accidental ejaculations there, that means you're not pushing the envelope. Because as I said before, the idea is to completely surrender and dive into the sexual ecstasy and let the sexual energy move you, and it's going to get frenzious, it's going to get wild, like sexuality is, and you are going to ejaculate by accident, believe me. So the better you get at it, the harder it gets in a lot of respects too, because the urge to ejaculate, especially when you hit your target. Because last year and the previous years, my target was only 5 days. But this year I raised it 2 more days, because it's just, the more you can go, the better. Now, one question I want to really address here that a lot of people might be asking themselves is, what about blue balls? If you've ever had blue balls, oh my God, it is not fun. Now, the answer is you will almost, if you do it right, you will almost never get blue balls. Okay, but you occasionally will get blue balls, and this is sort of something I'm working through right now. What I've noticed in my exploration is, see, my record is 13 days without ejaculating, but that was before I kept a record of it. That was probably happened in either 2011 or 2010. So my record's 13 days, and that's a long time. And, so, my record since I've been keeping track of it is 9 days, and that was this year. And before that it was 8. But then, my ultimate record is 13 days doing that. But and during the 13-day run, I actually worked through blue balls twice. Because what I've noticed happens is this: you'll be doing this, you'll be going along, and so long as you reach the authentic sexual realm, I mean, you'll know when you get there once you feel it, because you'll be in a orgasmic full body ecstasy, and you'll feel it in your hands, you'll feel it in your feet, you feel it all throughout your body, you'll feel it flowing through your legs and your arms, you'll feel it in your everything. Your entire body will become alive and orgasmic when you feel it. So long as you can get even close to that state, you won't get blue balls. But what ends up happening is, usually once I get around like the 9-day mark or so, I'll get blue balls. And I'm wondering if that, see, I'm still working through this too, so I mean, it's an ongoing process of discovery. So I'm wondering if that is just my body's natural way of telling me it's time to ejaculate, it's time to pop one off. Because as you get more and more sensitive, you'll know when you have to come. You'll get hot. You'll get fucking hot, and you'll know you have to come. You'll feel that heat in your body, and you'll know, I gotta fucking bust one off, and you do, And then, but let's take a step backwards for a minute. Now, if you're a man and you're ejaculating every day, you're probably so far away, because your sensitivity and your ability to feel diminishes when you ejaculate every day. And let me give you a quick story of my journey in this so far. See, this started for me when I was in my late 20s, maybe the earliest of 30s, and I discovered that I became aware that this was even possible around then, but then I started to work with it a little bit and make discoveries and, iron things out and develop my own systems and whatnot, and, sort of just learning as I go, and I used to just go along, and there was really no structure to the way I do things. And then one day, at one point in time, I decided to make up a formula for keeping, because I was coming, all the time, and the older you get, the bigger the span has to be between ejaculations, because it is important to ejaculate, but the big question is, what is the frequency? But certainly not every day, or multiple times a day. Good God. If you're one of these guys who masturbates 3 or 4 times a day, you are fucking doing yourself a huge disservice. Really. I mean, even every day is too much. And let me continue with my story, and I'll tell you how, how I sort of, came to know this to be true. Because, when I first started learning this, I would have success and it would feel good and all this wonderful stuff. But then ultimately you just want to ejaculate, because ejaculating is addictive, because it is a powerful sensation. It's just only when you learn how good it really feels when you don't ejaculate that almost becomes addictive in a sense too. So I'm going along and I'm doing my thing, and my first formula, I guess, for a pattern, to sort of a guideline to follow, was 3 days. Okay, and I made this up probably somewhere around 2006 or 7, sometime around then. And the idea was to go 3 days. So I would have a 0 day, the actual ejaculation day. Then I would try and go 3 days. So one, two, while masturbating, of course, or having sex or whatever. So it would go 0, then 1, 2, 3, then ejaculate again. But in that time, I almost never made it. I mean, I'd be lucky to get 2 days, 1 day, 2 days. I mean, I was really not doing well with it. And it reached a point where I just kind of even stopped doing it. I would have sex with my girl, or I'd be, here looking at porn, jerking off, and I actually reached a point where I was just ejaculating almost every day, all the time. I actually even stopped working with this at all. I just said, fuck it. I just sort of just stopped. And I was in a place where I was masturbating or having sex or whatever and ejaculating every day. And it reached a point where it was even hard to fucking come. I'd be sitting there looking at porn, beating the fuck out of my dick. And it'd be like, come on, let's come on. It's like, there was no real sexual sensitivity. There was no real orgasmic sensation, no real ecstasy at all. I was so far away from that because I was squandering my sexual energy through ejaculations. I mean, ejaculating is for reproducing, not sexual ecstasy. And I was so far away from it that, honestly, sex or masturbation it was a habit. It developed into a habit. It wasn't even fun, really, anymore. It was becoming difficult to ejaculate because of the frequency of it. And I was so desensitized to real orgasmic sexual ecstasy. So at one point in time I decided, listen, I kind of had to remind myself, okay, I know better than this. It was probably shortly after I started doing my daily meditations, because that sort of allows you to step outside the chaotic fray of existence and see between the gaps, and see the empty spaces. And it's probably then, because this started, I'm pretty sure, in 2010, maybe 2011, but whenever it was around there that I started getting back into the discipline of sexual mastery in actual controlling ejaculation frequency. So I said, okay, I'm going to make an effort to get back into this. And it took me a while. And I think what triggered it was, I was just looking at fucking porn and jerking off or something like that. And I'm like, man, I can't even fucking come. I mean, this is like, I'm beating the fucking shit out of my dick to force myself to ejaculate. And it's like, what the fuck? This is not the way sex is supposed to be. I mean, I know this. And it was just like, fuck. So that sort of probably re-motivated me to re-explore divine sexuality, which is what I'm talking about. And so I started, okay, I'm going to try to do this again. I'm going to start this again. And it took me a while, maybe even a week, before I even just got the slightest glimpses of beginning to feel the true divine sexual orgasmic sensations without ejaculating again. But it was really, it was really hard, because ejaculating every day fucking robs you of sexual energy and the ability to feel. It's really not something you want to do. So finally, I started to have the faintest tastes of what it really feels like again. And then once I tasted that, I started to get better and better and better at it. And then I developed my the 5-day model. So the target would be 5 days between ejaculations. It'd be 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you would try to extend it as long as you can, or whatever it was, or until you feel you need to ejaculate, whatever it is. But the target was 5 days, and it was like that for 2 or 3 years. I kept it at 5 days, and I was happy with that. Now I moved up to 7, and I'm happy with that. And actually, one thing I want to mention here too is ejaculation almost has like a gravity to it, okay? Meaning that when you ejaculate, it's harder to not ejaculate in the days closest to the ejaculation, and the farther away you get from the gravity of ejaculation, the easier it gets, until the point when you get to the 4, 5, 6 day mark, when you really do not want to ejaculate anymore, and now you're starting to get the mindset to start breaking records, because you don't need to ejaculate anymore, because the ecstasy you feel from non-ejaculatory sexuality lasts for hours after you finish the sexual act. So meaning, you're riding the waves of pure ecstasy, I mean pure ecstasy, in not ejaculating, but that ecstatic, fine, energetic bliss lasts for hours after you stop the sexual act. It feels so good that you just really, genuinely do not want to ejaculate anymore. And as a matter of fact, if you do ejaculate, it sucks the life out of you. You feel like you got run over. You feel like shit. You feel like you got hit by a truck. It's just not pleasant, and you can feel it for, I mean, now if I ejaculate, I feel it for days afterwards. I can feel it for days afterwards. And the longer you go between ejaculations, the more intense it is. So I would say ejaculation frequency is really more important than even ejaculation control, really, but they go hand in hand, because ejaculation control is important to be just a skilled, good lover and to be able to ride the waves of ecstasy. That's important for that. But ejaculation frequency allows you to feel more because you're not squandering ejaculations. And one thing, if you ever do any research in like any Taoist type of study at all, like Qigong or Taoist sexual acts or tantric acts, but Taoist specifically, almost everything they talk about ultimately will go back to ejaculation control in frequency, because whatever it is, they'll say ultimately it always goes back to ejaculation frequency. They talk about that all the time. Be careful of your ejaculation frequency. Watch your ejaculation frequency. On and on and on. It always ends up going back there. That's how important it is. So if you're ejaculating, every day, you are in the wrong frame right now. You have to fix that. You have to fix that. The older you get, I mean, if you're a teenage kid, have a good time, ejaculate on you want, but as you get higher into your 20s and through your 30s and then into your 40s and higher, it becomes absolutely vital that you understand ejaculation frequency. Because remember, divine ecstatic sexuality has nothing to do with ejaculation. Ejaculating is for reproducing, not sexual ecstasy. You have to understand that. You need to know that. And the better you get at it, the better you get at controlling your ejaculations, and the greater the span between your frequencies of ejaculating, the better and more intensely you will be able to feel divine, deep sexual ecstasy, to where you're literally almost losing your mind. As a matter of fact, ever since I had that trip recently, where I had that complete ego death trip, and I was in a state of divine sexuality, I mean sexual ecstasy, or full body orgasmic sexual ecstasy on this mushroom trip I had. Ever since I came back from that, I have been able to reach states of ecstasy that I've never even been able to imagine before in the sexual state. It is really a quantum leap in my ability to feel ecstasy. I'm like losing my mind in these sexual states. It's absolutely amazing. It is absolutely, I can't believe how good it feels. I'm like, and I was pretty good before, but ever since I came back from that trip, it's been like a new level. I mean, I'm just like, it is really unbelievable. It is. It's unbelievable. I'm astonished by it. So, alright, let's wrap this up. And again, I'm going to have to do more, because this is a topic that's going to require a lot of... The good news is, if you're a guy and you enjoy masturbating, and who doesn't, is that this requires you to masturbate quite often and get good at it. Because one point I want to make, there's a difference between one thing you don't want to do is be sexually abstinent. Meaning, so if you have an ejaculation, the last thing you want to do is say, okay, I'm not going to get into a sexual state at all for 7 days, and then I'll masturbate and come again. No, that's going to drive you insane and turn you into a fucking psycho if you do that. The idea is to jump in head first into sexual ecstasy while getting into actively engaging into the sexual state. That's why when I catalog what I do, having that second number as high, as close to the first number is pretty important, because 7, using 7 as a reference, 7 over 5 could just as easily be 7 over 0, or 7 over 2, or 7 over 3, depending on how many times you engage in sexual activity without ejaculating. But the idea is to have many sexual adventures without ejaculation, so you become familiar with how it feels. And it's also important to take time off too. I mean, the higher you get, taking a day off is going to become important. So usually what I do is after the ejaculation, I'll take a day off, because that sets you up for success. It gets you away from the gravity of the ejaculation a little bit. It just gives you a jump on success. And then usually what I try to do, and this is flexible, you don't need to be rigid about it, but what I try to do is I'll go 2 days in a row where I enter the sexual state and not ejaculate, then take a day off, and then go 2 more again. As the deeper you get, meaning, say once you start getting to 5, 6, 7 day territory, you're going to want to keep having sexual action every day. You're going to get wound up. You're going to want to keep going and going and going. But it's going to, I think, to avoid the blue balls at the later evolutions of this, you have to take time off, because I'm still trying to work through the blue ball phenomenon, because it's going to happen as you get deeper away from the orgasm date. So I'm trying to figure out how to, because for me, as I said, it's around the 9-day mark that happens. So I'm trying to figure out how to get through that without getting, to make that blue ball number extend to a later date. And I'm still working on that. So as I figure it out, I'll share it with you guys. So.